It's true. He did do that.
We were first accosted by those damn harpies that swarmed the skies and descended upon us. But we managed to form our battle lines and hold them off, but then suddenly our flanks were surrounded by the rising of the undead. And that just made our forces split even further. We tried our best to hold them, but we could see we were wavering. And to make matters worse, a number of these monstrosities, almost like flesh golems, descended upon us and tried to take down our commanders in one fell swoop. I ended up having to face one of them in single combat, and well, let's just say he was the one worse off. No matter.
Aylin doesn't make any acknowledgement like she knows what a flesh golem is or has encountered one. I think she would probably just say something like, well, clearly you did a good job since you are still here, but could have protected yourself a bit more. And she looks down at probably the worst part as she starts to heal it.
You probably poke it.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
So I think that towards the end of the story, and well, I mean, Farron didn't ask, so I won't force it, but I think that a couple of men and women come up to your bedside, Farron, and you can see that a couple of them are holding something behind their back, and they wait kind of patiently at the foot of the bed, and all their eyes appear to be on Aylin. Do either of you address them? There's probably 5 or 6 of them.
I don't. I'm busy.
Yeah, I probably do. Aylin, I'm not going to die in the next 5 minutes.
So you just wait until Aylin's kind of done?
Yeah, I kind of.
Okay.
Pause there.
Yeah, so I think Aylin, if you want to make some rolls, spend some slots. Well, it may not matter because you might not ride out with them.
Just so, because I don't actually know, what is your actual HP at?
Currently
21 out of
73.
And did you actually incur something that a greater restoration would require?
He did not have to make a death saving throw.
No.
Okay, good. Then I will just use some healing spells. Just checking. Alright.
Holy shit.
That's amazing.
And then add 4 to the 18.
So everybody's been cured of cancer.
You know, never believe it's not so.
43.
Just as a quick question, because this may help determining spell slot. Does she also have her channel divinity? Because that incurs healing as well.
Nope.
Okay.
No, I still have, 2 days on that?
Yeah.
That's
Remember,
divine intervention.
It uses her channel divinity.
It uses, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every cleric has you can use the regular channel divinity, or you can use your special thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and hers it puts it on cooldown for a week when she uses it.
Okay. Was just wondering. Since I know she's in the
even Morella used her channel divinity.
Yep.
It's amazing.
You know who didn't use his channel divinity?
You don't have it. Shut up, you.
What are you at now, Will?
Just over half.
You know who also didn't use his channel divinity? Hannibal.
It's not updating for me for some reason. Did you update your token? Or your character sheet?
What? Who?
Talking to Farron.
Oh. So that's 9, Will.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
And then I'm just checking all my spell slots here.
I mean, I
think you're probably. Well, you said you also would dismiss me at a certain time, so.
Yeah, I think now that you've kind of reset my bones, I could deal with it sufficiently myself.
Yeah.
So.
And so since the both of you ignored and waited, Farron, when she's like done, and you get ready to dismiss her, you notice the queue of people has grown to about 15 or so now, and other people around are starting to look.
Helen.
Do you like lean close to her and like? Hey.
Do you know there's people behind you?
Exactly. It's Helen. I think that you should probably deal with them. I'll be able to manage on my own for now. Thank you.
Deal with who? And then I like stand up and turn around and
Yeah.
Oh.
And so so as you turn around, the woman in front, she kind of like averts her gaze quickly, and she like comes up to you and she kneels down next to the bed where you're kind of like kneeling next to Farron, and she pulls from behind her back like this kind of crushed flower that apparently she found like on the ground somewhere, and she says to you, she says, "This is my offering, O daughter of the light. Please accept it."
Aelin graciously takes it and says, "Oh, sister, that will not be necessary, but thank you very much."
Yeah, and she bows very low, like almost her head hits the floor, and she backs away slowly, maintaining her bow, so she's kind of like walking backwards at like a 90-degree angle. And the man standing behind her comes up, and he pulls from behind his back. It's clearly like an embroidered like handkerchief that appears. It doesn't appear soiled, but appears dirty from like just general wear and tear from traveling. And he says, "Oh, Holy One, I offer this. It is my most valuable family heirloom. I hope that it will appease your gracious and bright host."
Aelin takes it and says the same thing, as if all of a sudden she's recognizing that she will have to do this for all of them. But she keeps her, I don't want to say, she keeps her composure and just says, you know, although this is not necessary, I greatly appreciate it, brother.
Yeah. And I think that the next person, like, you get through a couple of people and there's like, the line is kind of growing and more people are looking now. Farron, do you say anything?
I'm kind of in shock. Like, what on earth happened?
Right.
She is now being revered as...
Yeah, this is beyond things that you've seen before.
Yeah.
This is like, the best way to describe it is, this is worship to Aelin, not to who Aelin serves. Like 100%. And like, probably as you're sitting there and as this procession continues, there are other keywords. There is probably like Angel of Mercy, Angel of Light, Bright One is probably used, Shining Star in the Darkness, Deliverer of Hope, like all of these very, how best to describe it, all of these phrases reserved for people who, even in Aelin Station, would not be called. In fact, Farron, I would say you would equate this to words that you would use for an emperor level individual. Like, these people are greeting Aelin like they would greet the emperor, in the same, like, sort of reverence. And this goes on for a time. Is there at any point where anybody says or intervenes or does anything?
Boats and hoes. Boats and hoes.
No, I think I may after, but yeah. This is still
Okay.
far too shocking.
Sure, yeah. So we finish, and Aelin collects a smattering of objects. Like seriously, there are probably like silver utensils that were brought, and there's some amount of coin probably that is also brought. There is, just all kinds of... Okay, so for those of you that have seen The Little Mermaid, do you remember her cave of things?
Yep.
That is
You
basically...
just the random things of bullshit?
Yeah. But, like, all have, like, at least some amount of monetary value, and if they don't, they clearly have an amount of sentimental value.
Like a hypodermic needle.
No. Those don't exist.
You told me they do!
Only for you. To inject
You even
poison
have
in it.
them.
Correct. Okay, these people don't have those. Go find some gnomes or some dwarves, perhaps. Or some goblins. Maybe they'll have some hypodermic needles.
Damn right they will.
So once this procession is over, Farron, you said you would say something?
Yeah. I think I just say in a low voice, Aelin, what on earth did you do? And
I think Aelin without Aelin looking at you, I think she's still just like very gently and very delicately like stacking all of the lovely gifts and like saying a few prayers over them. I think without lifting her head to look at you, she just says, what any righteous soul would have done.
Very matter of fact about it, perhaps. Morella, I assume you're still in the room in the hospital, so you definitely would have observed this.
Actually, I left.
Oh, you left completely? Okay, then never mind.
Yeah, I left completely.
So then that bodes the question, Farron. What's your response to that?
I think I need to consult with the thinker of my duo, because this is just way over Farron's head at this point.
Your brains to your pinky.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think as if it wasn't weird at all, Aelin would just, holding all of her things, just look at you and say, Farron, is there anything else I can do for you?
I know. I'll be able to, patch myself up from this point. Thank you, Aelin.
Of course. She just gives like a slight bow and says, I'll take my leave.
She wraps her things up in a pillowcase.
I think she just walks over and she leaves the hospital at this point.
Yeah, cool. So Marilla, where did you go when you left?
Back to my tent.
Okay, so you head off back towards your tent, and what's your plan?
I suppose because she's still in her armor and things like that, and then she sits down at her makeshift desk, which is like pretty much a table with like a bunch of writing utensils and like maybe a candle in the corner.
Yeah.
As she takes off her helmet and then like throws it aside on the table. As you can see her wiping or like her eyes and just she looks back at like the entrance of the tent and then like takes a deep breath in and she's like, I should probably tell Aelin I need my reports adjusted.
Okay. So do we zoom out of that as you begin writing, I assume?
She sits for a bit. She doesn't like just immediately like it seems like her legs were just tired and things of that sort. And she takes a quick moment to breathe a little bit and then probably stands up slowly before walking out.
Okay.
Still a better healer than you, Farron. Forever, always will be.
You ain't got the skills, Farron.
So I think that we head over to the tavern again. And we see Hannibal inside with Arkady and Cahill and the rest of the council. And Arkady probably leans over to you, Hannibal, like during a moment where neither of you are talking, and he says, "Hannibal, I have a question for you.
You may ask it.
How true is the story that you received those scars from the Norsemen?"
The scars weren't directly from them. However, it is because of them I have these scars.
Yeah, and he kind of like nods. He says, "Ah, okay, I see." Well,
I hate them. I hate them.
hate is good. Yes, good to channel hate. With hate, at least we can direct it.
Bring out your dad. Sorry, he just completely wrecked my flow. I'm gonna need about 5 minutes.
And Arkady says, he goes, "Have you much training in fighting atop a mount, Hannibal?"
Not really, but if it's spells, I can cast them.
Very well. I think that I will send the spear maidens with you on this journey. Regular foot soldiers could not keep up with the horsemen, but I believe that they could. This landscape is very similar to back home.
Got it. And then I turn to shield maidens. I don't know your names.
They're not in there.
Okay.
They're probably outside the tavern, like waiting for Arkady to come out.
Okay. That's it, Arkady. I don't know their names, and it's going to be super awkward.
He's like, "This Kira and Malia, and we traveled with them for some time.
I'm not going to remember that.
You have had conversations with them before, I am certain.
I have?
Yes, we traveled for at least 2 weeks.
Hannibal thinks back on his memory. Does not remember this.
Yeah, on your way before you separated and went to the went with Kree to the Lizardman place. You guys were traveling together, all of you.
No, Hannibal just doesn't remember this.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
He does not remember people that don't interest him.
Yeah, and I think Arkady just shakes his head and he says, "Well, I for one will be glad that I am not going with you."
Speaking of which, I need to...
By the way, I have a question. Second one.
You may ask it.
The singing one, my compatriot. He lives, yes?
Who? Oh, yeah, him.
Farron?
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's alive.
Yeah, he's alive.
Good. I would rather not like to tell his family that he is dead.
Who cares?
Well, they do, obviously.
Yeah, but do you?
Unfortunately, I do. I require I owe a great debt to that's individual of Weil. I see to pay it. I do not like unpaid debts.
I know the feeling. I'm about to pay one soon. And we'll just kind of like scratches his mask.
Yeah, and I think he like Arcady like slaps you on the back of the arm because he can't reach your shoulder. He just like slaps you on the back of the arm, gives you a nod and a firm smile. So Cahill, oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, yes is the answer to that question.
You have ascended.
Hooray!
You finally achieved your heritage.
All right, GG. Later. There I am. Continue.
So Cahill is inside of the tavern, and he's getting input from you, Hannibal. He's going to send you, Hannibal. Lord Groundberg is also going to go, but Cahill is going to remain to deal with the aftermath of this. Because there's a lot of stuff that needs done here that requires his attention. So you and Lord Groundberg, who you know he's not a fighter, really. He's probably just going as like an advisor, perhaps. He can hold a sword and he can handle his own, but he's not Cahill. Cahill's a warrior, right? At least a little more so. Yeah, perhaps a tactician, sure. And you guys are to be seen as like equals, right? You handle the fighting and the onslaught. He'll handle the logistics of things that go on. And I don't know how much dealing you've had with Lord Groundberg the whole time, but he's a fairly straightforward individual. He speaks his mind and isn't afraid to say when things are, when he is against or with certain things. So he's not very unlike Hannibal, I think, in that regard.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking they might get along, actually.
Right, and that's kind of what I'm alluding to, is, like, I think that out of all of the council members, Lord Groundberg's probably the one you would get along with. He doesn't talk a whole lot, he doesn't speak up a whole lot, he doesn't feel like he needs to influence everything that is said, like Cahill does. But he certainly is not afraid to say when things are upsetting him, or, when things disagree with him vividly, he gets involved. And so, yeah, he's probably chosen because it's a good fit. I'd
like there to be a moment where we just stare at each other, then we both extend hands at the same time and shake. And
I think that, after the, dismissal, okay, you two need to go prepare. He, stands up, and you're, staring at each other, and, very kind of passively, blank staring at each other. And then you both extend hands and shake very firmly.
And then Hannibal thinks to himself, new best friend!
So, the two of you begin to plan, while your men are being prepared by Kree outside. So, Kree, you've got a contingent of... let me look at my units tab here. So, you have the... So you have a choice here, Kree. The Lizardman Cavalry are still available. They were somewhat removed from that particular fight. It was mostly the foot soldiers that were easier and more readily available to suit up, right? Because getting mounts ready and all that stuff takes time. So the Lizardman Cavalry, the regular soldier cavalry, is still fairly available as well. And as well, the actual contingent of knights are still available. You can choose two of those to ride out. They're in order of amount of units. There are more soldier cavalry. There's about 340 of them. There's about 210 lizardmen cavalry, and there's about 100 knights. But the knights are obviously the shock troops, well armored, well trained. So you can choose to have 2 of those go out, and I'll let you choose because you're making the decisions about who's forming into units and stuff like that.
Well, the lizardmen are obviously heavy cavalry,
Mm-hmm.
and since we can't just go and do a light attack,
Yeah.
because we don't have a second light cavalry, I'm gonna go with the knights and the lizardmen.
Okay. All right. So you want to keep the lighter cavalry back a little bit. Or I should say, you want to keep them back with the army and send the 2 kind of bulkier shock troop units.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So also the Warhounds, or a portion of the Warhounds, will be joining you in this endeavor, because that is something that Kale said. The Warhounds are, obviously they're just dogs, so they're very kind of, they're mastiffs. Yeah, that's yes, correct. They are a little bit.
Can I communicate with them with bee speech?
You absolutely could. Yes. They have handlers who have mounts, but it's like 1 handler for every like 10 to 20 dogs, right? So the handlers don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. They're just there to kind of direct the dogs, the hounds. But there are a lot of hounds. In fact, the army holds probably about about almost 1,700 hounds in its contingents. And so most of those will be actually joining these shock troopers. Because you need quick, aggressive strikes, which is the entire reason these hounds exist. And as well, you know that the enemy has its own hounds. And so kind of fighting fire with fire here a little bit. So those are the 3 units that will ride out to engage the enemy as it stands, which is great, awesome, fantastic.
I will also put out an open call for any warrior with hatred towards beings of chaos. If they wish to join, I will allow them.
Okay, yeah. So do you want to? So it's kind of like, it's basically like midnight now, after all is said and done, and everybody's like ready to go, and the men have gotten probably a little bit of sleep. Like, you've allowed them to at least rest, so they're not exhausted by the time they get to the enemy, because they'll be riding all throughout the rest of the night, basically. And so you kind of all the units are prepared and set forth, and Cahill takes you and Lord Groundberg kind of out to the troops, and you see arrayed before you see the knights in like their heavy armor and like lances and swords. And again, the knights are probably the most like distinct group, because they all have their own weapons, right? They're not like armed, they're not they're not supplied by like the military. Like, it's a lot of the paladins too. There's a lot of like paladins within the ranks, and they're like heavy armored. Their horses have barding, like. And then you see the lizardmen who are riding atop these giant like cold ones, right? Where they have 2 legs and 2 arms technically, but their arms are like really short, kind of like T-Rexes. And
They're velociraptors.
it's true. They're basically velociraptors, but kind of fatter around and big mouth. Descendant, like, if you took a frog and kind of bred it with a velociraptor, that's kind of what you got in the cold ones.
That's not possible.
Anything's possible. There's magic. You became literally a fucking angel.
Fight over.
I mean, that's not that big of a stretch.
Right, sure. And then you see like all of the hounds. You can hear them. You can just hear like the barking and baying, and they kind of like they dwarf. They're kind of like surrounding all of the rest of the units, right? With all these handlers, and like they have all their dogs on like these really long pieces of rope, right, to like ride next to them, and then they'll release them at a certain time when the battle is right. And so you have this like this big, large unit in front of you of people. And Cahill probably like gets up and he begins speaking to the men, and he says, "Men and women, tonight You go and do the Empire proud. Too long have we sat back and been assailed by these forces of evil and chaos. Tonight you ride and make our first scratch against them. Let me introduce you to your generals that will be leading you on this journey. And he turns and he says, Hannibal D. Solomon, renowned by many of you for his prowess in the arcane arts and also in battle. And I think you hear some cheers from the crowd, right? There's people who are not actually in this formation that are cheering, like, for the Solomons, like, you know, they're doing that same thing that they did before.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of, like, you get up and you raise your hand or whatever you do. Or you
I like to say a little something.
Yeah, and he introduces Lord Groundberg, too, and there's cheers, you know. Lord Groundberg, and you hear some, like, names of some towns that he's in charge of. Maybe there's some men in the units that, like, he's their direct lord, right? And then Kale kind of steps off the little dais that he's on and gives you the floor, Hannibal.
Men, tonight we are fighting the most vile men in existence. These are the men of Norska, tainted by chaos, followers of evil. Many times when we fight, we don't know if we are. However, I can assure you this time, we are good. We are righteousness. As such, I beseech thee to take up your swords and fight against true evil.
There's cheering in the crowd. The hounds begin to bay, and it kind of like echoes across the hillsides, right? And like there's banging of swords on shields and cheering and hooping and hollering, and Lord Gromberg, I think, doesn't say anything. I think he just gives you like a smile and a nod.
I give him the thumbs up.
Yeah. Yeah. He just, and then I think he looks at you and he looks at your thumb up and he just shakes his head slightly. And then the two of you mount and begin leading this host away. However, I will ask, anyone is able to join them if they so choose. I would not deny you your fight.
Keep in mind, you will be subservient to me.
He has been chosen as the general. I mean, whether or not you choose to follow.
I actually need a role-playing scene with Farron. That is the question being asked.
So, like, before this happens?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, sure. Kree, I assume you'll be riding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, riding at the head of the Lizardmen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
well,
so...
there's no more just Lizardmen anymore.
Well, true, yeah, it is a mixture of... Oh, well, the Lizardmen cavalry are fairly intact.
Mm-hmm.
It was the foot soldiers that took a big hit.
Yep.
Gotcha.
The cavalry is mostly intact because they probably ran over to get their mounts, and by the time like everything was said and done, they were part of the cleanup crew, right?
Yeah. That's why they're the freshest and the ones riding out.
Right, exactly. That's why they're able to ride. So anyway, so where do we see Farron? Farron, you leave the hospital at some point, I assume.
Yeah. I would have healed myself up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is why I was asking all those things, because note, if you do ride, you will not get a long rest. It is possible to perhaps get a short rest, like if you travel, take a short rest for an hour, and then, you know, get ready for the battle and charge in or whatever, but you will not get a long rest if you ride out tonight.
No. And, so yeah, where do I meet you, Farron?
And in what state of mentality does he meet you?
I mean, I've had many a complete gouging of my body, so it's hardly a new experience. But
I was mostly talking about the other thing, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm probably more in deep thoughts about alien.
So maybe you actually like run into each other, right? Like maybe Farron, you're kind of just like meandering, like stuck in thought, and Marilla, you like see him and you're like, Farron, and he like doesn't answer you right away.
Yeah. So there's sort of Mr. McKay.
Yeah. Finally, you snap out of it, Farron, and you see Marilla like standing like right in front of you, right? Like you didn't even see her before.
Yes, my lady. I didn't see you there.
I could tell. Tell me, will you be heading off?
Heading off where, my lady?
She kind of like looks off in the distance, and like you could probably see like some horses.
Yeah, the formations are being made. But again, Farron is accurate. He doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, I would assume Marilla just overhears.
I assumed you found out pretty quickly, yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, it seems we're leading a small attack task force to deal with the Norscan men a few miles from here. Are you able to fight? Or are your injuries too grievous?
I should be able to swing my sword well enough at the moment, but I'm a little mentally drained from that last battle, so I may not.
Yeah. When you say that, she like grabs your arm a little assertively, and she's like, Farron, are you able to fight?
Yes, my lady Marilla.
I want to make an insight roll to see whether Farron is lying to me.
I will allow Farron to tell you whether or not it is successful.
Okay. Let me make a roll.
And even if it's like a 20, if you don't want him to know, Farron, you're totally able to tell him no.
No, you can see that he's been bandaged up well enough, and you think that his sword arm will still have strength, but he may not be able to exert the full force of his powers that you know he can achieve.
Yeah, and when she looks at this, like she probably looks at your body, and then she like takes like a gander at you for a moment, and then she just sighs a bit. She's like, fine, and then unequips her quiver and hands it to you. Take this if you're riding. I will not have you fight with your sword arm. You're a good shot. And from the looks of it, you're running out of arrows.
Thank you, my lady.
Yeah. And so add 32 arrows to your stock.
So Marilla and Farron are going, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're prepared to follow orders.
Or not. It's up to you.
Mm-hmm.
So Farron, when you go to prepare maybe, but I think you find some reason to like take a moment to yourself, and maybe you're like walking through the tents, like going to find your horse maybe or something like that, and you hear a whistle. And you recognize that it is Arkady trying to get your attention. And so you look around for a moment, and you see like a cloak hanging over like a post that's been or like a tent pole that's like been knocked over, and you notice that it's Arkady's cloak. So you walk over and you like pick it up, and you see him kind of in the shadows sitting. And he's probably like he's like twirling one of his arrows in his hand. So you walk up to him.
Hi, Arkady. I've been meaning to talk with you.
Yeah, and he says, yes, and me too. And I've been doing a lot of thinking lately.
Oh, aye?
I know that there is something you desire that you have never told me, but I have, well, inspired from your actions. I think that I know now why you follow Morella.
Oh, why? Do tell.
It has been something that I've been thinking about working on for you for some time, but it is obvious to me that you wish to have, well, let's say, settle down, have a place of your own, perhaps land of your own. And, of course, what could be without that but some renown? Is this far off the mark?
Aye, you could say that. As you know, I've spent most of my life without a place to call home. Of course, you know me, I'm not one to settle down and retire anytime soon, but certainly yes, place to call home, that I think is what I desire most.
Yes, this is what I assume, but I've been having some talks with some of the nobles here. You have made a name for yourself, Farron. It would be likely that any number of them would be willing to, let's say, part with some of their holdings to anoint a new constituent to the Empire. Is this something that you are interested in?
Indeed, in truth, that was along the lines of what my request of Lady Morella would be once this was all said and done.
Yeah, and he gives you a knowing smile as if he suspected that all along. And he says, very well. Just understand that if we survive this, and by we I basically mean you, because you will not find me on the battlefield. If you survive this, Farron, you will have something to come home to, regardless of any other promises or desires. I have made some arrangements, let's say, and undoubtedly there will be lords who have lost their lands and their lives in this outcome. I think it is safe to say that you will have your pick of the litter.
I just give a smirk and say, I don't think I could have asked for a better partner after all these years.
Yes, well, the debts were piling up and coin is scarce in these lands. I figured there is something that I needed to do to repay you for all of your work.
And I think I, quite out of character for our usual interactions, I give a, very polite bow towards Arcady. And say, thank you, Arcady, Charles. You have always taken care of me.
Yeah, I think he looks at you and he smiles and he says, that is ambassador to you now.
Aye, of course, ambassador.
Yeah, and he probably gets up and holds out his hand to shake.
Yeah, I give a very firm handshake.
Yeah.
With a glowing smile.
Yeah, and he says well, I assume that our barbarian princess is riding into battle and she has need of your assistance, even though it is clear you are quite tired. This is true?
Aye, somebody has to watch her back in these times?
He his eyes dart down to the bandages, and he says, "Yes, I'm sure that is the case. Very well. Good luck. Try not to die on me."
Aye. Well, be sure to hold you to your word.
And I think he kind of as he's walking off, and he kind of waves a hand. He's like, "When have I ever been bad for it?" And kind of he melts away before your eyes, right? Even you can't follow him because he can roll things like 35s or something like that on stealth.
Plus, I think he says reliable talent now, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like a minimum 20.
Very much a death flag. Yeah, maybe. So we see Morella and Farron probably riding with the knights, right? Because these are the men you know, right? These are the men that you brought to Middenstag the first time. Mm-hmm. So you're probably in charge of them, similar to how Kree is in charge of the Lizardmen.
Yep.
So yeah, we see the two of you, and probably we zoom in on Farron's face, right? As we're kind of marching off into the distance. And I think that the other scene we need to have is Aelin, you probably realize that you need to sleep at some point. And so you kind of slowly make your way over to wherever. I think you were still staying in the tents outside. And as you're walking, you're kind of drowsily, maybe kind of zoning out a little bit. And you feel someone grab your arm. And you turn and look, and in a hood, but not very inconspicuous, Cahill is there. Because he's in a cloak with a hood, but he's still got his regal armor on and stuff. So he's still pretty identifiable to anyone who looks fairly hard.
Strikingly handsome, even in a hood.
Yeah, and I think you notice there's a slight gash that's already healed it, so it bled, and it's just a little line right underneath his eye. And you can see he has this look of concern on his face. And he's grasping your arm, perhaps even a little too tightly. And he says, "Aelin, I've been looking everywhere. Are you all right?"
I think that not really thinking and so incredibly exhausted, she doesn't say anything, and she just turns and kind of just collapses into him and just lays her head on his chest.
Yeah, and I think that yeah, you just collapse into him, and he embraces you, and we see him kind of look around, and he's like, come, and he kind of he probably even lifts you up, right? He probably even carries you at this point, so you don't have to tie your feet, and he begins walking very stiffly towards through these kind of side roads, to get back to the tavern. And when he walks into the tavern, there are people in there. There are servants. There are, some of the council members are probably still there. I think, what's her name? Lady Tolsbeck is definitely still in there. And you can see Cahill kind of looks at her, and he says, "Lady, find a bed. The High Priestess must rest." And she kind of gives this moment of did you just give me an order? But then realizes that you're collapsed, right? Basically asleep. And she kind of gives a weird look and proceeds to go assist Cahill in finding you a bed to rest in for the night. And I think we see kind of melting from the shadows, we see Arkady, and he kind of he's still twirling the bolt in his hand, and he kind of we see him watch Cahill bring Aelin into the tavern, and he just kind of like nods his head a few times, and then melts back into the shadows. And that is where we end for the night.
So spooky.
Was it the creepy head nod that Jack Nicholson does?
No, it wasn't that. It was the affirmation of suspicions head nod.
Okay.
I knew they were fucking.
So, inspiration.
Mm.
Who do you all vote should get inspiration?
I don't know, but we're getting a lot better at using it, that's for sure.
Yep.
I think everybody used it today, aside from Aelin, who definitely would have used it.
I think Hannibal. He's just something's been revealed as part of the story, and he's played along with it really well.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. I was gonna give it to Hannibal for that speech because I thought that was super fucking good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Hannibal, congratulations, you can have inspiration. I'm gonna give mine to Morella. For the kind of calm under pressure scenarios that she's been faced with a few times and not given in to her typical personality. So that's cool. I like that. So mine's gonna go to Morella today.
Hey.
Congratulations.
Hey. That's fun.
Does anybody have any final words?
Boats and hoes.
Can't wait to
Boats
see you
and
next
hoes.
week.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Yes. Next week, same great time, same great place. We'll have Liam back. Which, by the way, for those curious, both here and in the interwebs, everything I've done with Arkady today was something we've talked about. Just FYI, I didn't like specifically put his character in situations that they wouldn't be in, or specifically reveal things that wouldn't have been revealed, etc., etc.
Yeah, you didn't
Just FYI. I received I think the most text Liam has ever written in Discord ever about things that he would like to do and methods that he would like to use to do things.
Did he predict I would reveal myself?
No, but he did say that he was going to push for an assault. So when you said you were going to do that, it was super easy.
Yeah.
There is one other thing that I am saving that he mentioned that is specifically for you, Marilla. So I'm going to wait on that one for him to do it because I didn't feel comfortable doing that.
Wonderful. I think definitely we can do that.
It's him admitting that he's defecting over to the Cahill side.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Wait, really?
He already has a T-shirt, man.
I already have a T-shirt. That's
secretly everyone's got
everybody's got T-shirts. They're like they're like baseball jerseys that have numbers, and then on the back it says Kalen instead of Cahill or Aelin. It just says Kalen on the back.
Yep, 100%.
My fucking Cahill. I like the asshole.
I mean, that's the thing,
I already
right?
have
He's a likable asshole, right?
Yeah, no, I like him. If he lets me do what I want.
I mean, I already have 30 devout, so I'm working on it. Get my numbers up there.
I'm fucking having an army now.
Yeah. Put you in charge of an army.
Yeah. Need to figure out how those work.
Good luck. So, anything else from anybody? Megan, glad you can make it at least for the last half, by the way.
Yeah.
Thanks for
sorry.
I would like to apologize for falling asleep through most of the first part.
No, it's totally fine. I mean, you didn't really miss anything, and you were there every time I needed you, so... You know, it wasn't like Will, who falls asleep and then fucking falls asleep.
Will check! Oh, I didn't get to do a will check today.
I almost asked for a Megan check, since you were like an extra hour and a half later than...
Also, I'm really sorry about snoring.
It's fine. I actually thought you were laughing each time.
Yep.
Yeah, it was pretty similar.
Because every time like we would say something, you would just be like, and like I thought you were like holding in a laugh, and so
That was pretty great.
yeah, and it was almost perfect every single time. But there was one time that it wasn't, and I was like, wait a second, Is he actually snoring, not laughing? Anyway, I'm going to do the outro. I'll talk to you guys in a few minutes, or I will talk to you next week.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, everybody. Glad you could be here. It's been a wonderful time. Oops, that's not what I wanted to turn off. Glad you all could be here. It's been absolutely amazing. If you like what you see, go ahead and, click the follow or subscribe or do all that fun stuff. We play every Fridays. And YouTube VOBs are uploaded Monday through Thursday. So the only days you don't get Dungeons & Dragons is the weekends. But that's all right. A fun session today. Glad everybody could be here. And I think that most importantly, from all of us to you, have a wonderful day, or night, or morning, or evening, wherever you are. And may your dice always roll high, and your saving throws come up pass. And as always, try not to die.